Well, good morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Iyori Folarin. Hope we meet you well. Well, our guest this morning is Dr. Muda Yusuf. Dr. Muda Yusuf is an economist and researcher and is also Director, Chief Executive Officer, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, CPPE. He's in immediate past Director General, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And recently, he was appointed by President Tinubu alongside Dr. Abba Ibrahim as one of the two members of the board of Nigeria Customs Service to oversee or serve, as it were, as representatives of the organized private sector. On that account, can I say congratulations to you, Dr. Yusuf?
Thank you.
Suddenly you are in the customs as one of two board members to represent the interests. What is it to the perspectives of the organized private sector?
Yes, the trade sector, particularly the import-export trade process, is one of the biggest challenges that businesses are facing. I know the president has been very, very particular about issues of investment climate.
Exactly.
He has said that to domestic investors. He has also stated that to foreign investors. That as much as possible, all the hurdles impeding the performance of business will be removed.
Yes, he has.
And he said it repeatedly that the buck stops
on his desk here.
So this is a very, very critical thing because we are talking about ease of doing business. I think one of the areas to especially focus on is the area that has to do with our ports, with our import-export trade processes, the entire ecosystem. There's a whole lot to be done. And the current CG is somebody who is also very committed to these reforms. He's as committed as the president to this reform. So I think that is the whole idea. And because the private sector also bears a lot of the brunt of some of the inadequacies in that system. It was felt that
and it takes
the private sector should also be represented. And the private sector has always been anyway represented. So I think it's a question of just sustaining that representation. That's representation.
Interest. Yeah. Well, congratulations, as I said once again, and no doubt this also, the board of the Customs Board, Nigerian Customs Service, it's going to be, from what you've just explained, it's also going to be crucial in the overall objective of this CBN initiative, shall we say, because CBN will be looking at all of the sectors, and the idea of $1 trillion economy by the end of the decade, it's quite an ambitious one, but President Tinubu was saying only yesterday, and has been saying it since it has been announced, that it's an achievable objective.
Yes, I believe so. There is nothing wrong in being ambitious. What is important is to ensure that we put the structures and the policies in place to achieve that. Even if we don't achieve the full, $1 trillion, we can achieve $800 billion, we can. Because even right now, there's what you call purchasing power parity. If you compute Nigeria's GDP on purchasing power parity basis, we are already about $1.3 trillion. And what purchasing power parity means is that when you look at what the Naira can buy here and what the equivalent can buy outside, you see that there is very serious, undervaluation of the worth of the Naira when you compare it as to what it can buy. For instance, a bottle of Coke in Nigeria is about $200 or $250. A bottle of Coke in the US is about $1 or $1.2. So that's over 1,000.
That's when you look at it like that.
When you look at it like that.
And in the case of Nigeria, this example that you've just cited about a bottle of Coke, it was not so long ago that a Coke was 1 naira and then 1 naira 50.
Yes.
Before it has now moved to 2 naira, 2 naira 50.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show you, and maybe that's what really speaks to the question of the capital adequacy, ascertaining the capital adequacy of the Nigerian financial sector. that really I was going to talk about. Because as you know, it's back in 2005 that we had this capitalization exercise. And at that time, bank capitalization was taken from 2 billion to 25 billion. And it seemed such a great big deal. Now, it sounds, against the background of the example you've just given, it sounds so inadequate in the scheme of things.
Yes. What has happened is that over time, there has been a significant erosion of value of the naira. So if you discount for inflation, because we are talking about 18 years ago, 25 billion 18 years ago, it's about almost 200 billion today. Because the exchange rate 2005 was about 130 naira to the dollar. Today we are talking 800, 850. In the parallel market, we are talking about 1,000.
Yes.
So you can imagine the erosion of value that has taken place. And because the banking system is also a very sensitive system, it's a system that requires very rigorous regulation, because people put their money there on trust, nothing else. On trust that you have a license from the CBN to take their money. So you find a situation where a bank will have a capital base of maybe 50 billion naira, for example, and has a deposit of close to 1 trillion. You understand what I mean? You know, so you need to ensure that the capital base can support the exposures that the bank has. And if the capital base has been eroded as a result of inflation over time, ideally, it should be something that is dynamic. You know, as the inflation, affects the capital base, it should be continuously adjusted. It's not something that should be static. Unfortunately, it has been static for almost 18 years. That's the minimum statutory requirement. But some banks on their own, who also are reading all the macroeconomic data, know that 25 billion naira is no longer realistic.
Not a sustainable figure.
So as we speak now, we have up to 5 or 6 banks that have a capital base of over 1 trillion naira. So they have even gone ahead of...
They've actually gone
ahead. Many of them, 300 billion, 400 billion, and so on. So a lot of them have actually adjusted. But we have a few maybe some fringe bank that need to do some work on their capitalization.
One of the things we're hearing, but by the way, even before I go to that, a lot of commentators, informed economists have said that, quite frankly, as you've just said, it was an inescapable route to sort of recapitalize. There was no way we wouldn't do that. So most economic commentators are happy with it. Although there are still some who are saying that, there are a few who are saying that, well, we hope that this will not further oppress the situation of the ordinary Nigerian. I don't know if that is an enlightened concern.
No. I see, it is in the interest of the ordinary Nigerian that we have a stable and sound financial system, a stable and sound banking system. It's in the interest of everybody. If the bank suddenly collapses because of inadequate capital, even the ordinary Nigerians will be victims of it. So this is a regulatory function to protect the interests of everybody. What is important is that it has to be done in a way that is not disruptive.
Okay.
That it doesn't expose both depositors and the shareholders to any serious risk. And that is why I like the approach of the current CBN governor. And that is about engagement with stakeholders. He has said that repeatedly, that he was going to engage with the stakeholders so that you come up with a framework that you allow this kind of seamless transition. Even if you are going to merge, you don't have to be stampeded
into doing so.
Okay. That was what we had in 2005. The time frame was so short that even some banks that were doing well in their own right, some of them had to go under. You know? So there were a lot of issues. So the method, the approach needs to be different. And that is very, very important. That's very important.
Indeed. Is there, I think most people are understanding of the direction that CBN is wanting to take the financial sector. And the president has, as I said, given his support to the idea. But does this begin to, or is it premature to begin to think of the kind of figures? I mean, we were talking back in 2005 of a figure of, from 2 billion to 25 billion. Now we've been at that 25 billion, as you just said, for the past 18 years. What would be a ballpark kind of sort of figure that indeed people, because you've just said that some people have actually in the region of $1 trillion or more by their own capitalization. Might they stop there and say, look, $1 trillion is what we would expect all serious banks to be able to handle? Or might it even go more?
No, what will happen is, we have a kind of stratification of banks. They have categories. You have banks that have international license. You have banks that have national. You have banks that have regional. Okay. So...
Okay, so sorry, I'm just hearing that the president is arriving at the National Assembly for the budget presentation. We will continue with our conversation here, but that's the president arriving to present the budget. Again, there are going to be some, some sort of insights into the way government wants to go, as a result of this budget presentation. So this government has concentrated from the very, very beginning, hasn't it, on the business sector of this country and the financial sector especially. Now, it's an intricate matter, and I'm happy that you just said that you particularly endorse the approach of the CBN governor, because if it is not properly carefully handled, then it could lead to some of what people are warning about that could lead to stress in the system. But with a competent handling of it, we shouldn't have that kind of affair, because there's not going to be a rush, apparently.
Yes. And that is the value of the consultation that he has spoken about. Because in 2005, many shareholders lost money. Many depositors also lost money. Many employees of banks lost their jobs just because we wanted to recapitalize. Now, I remember at that time, even the bank directors went to see President Obasanjo that they needed more time. And you weren't going to lose anything by giving them more time. But for some reasons, strange reasons, both Professor Soludo and President Obasanjo were insisted that they were not going to shift the deadline. And imagine moving from 2 billion to 25 billion. Almost under 1 year.
Yes, more than 12-fold.
Yes, it was too much. So that led to a situation where some banks were acquired on very ridiculous terms. Very ridiculous terms. We had mergers of strange bedfellows. People who normally, under normal conditions, should not have merged. But because of the rush, all of these things happened. So I'm optimistic that this is not going to be the case this time. And you must also, advise the media that we should manage the information properly so that we don't create challenges for some of the banks.